Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Exodus, the 18th chapter. When Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, and that the Lord Yahweh had brought Israel out of Egypt, then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her back. So at some point, because remember, he went back when the Lord called him, he went back into Egypt, but he had his wife and his sons with him. But the Lord Moses eventually sent them back. So they came back to stay with their father. And now, now that they were more in the wilderness, which remember, this Mount Horeb or Sinai was the place that Moses first met the Lord, right? And this was while he was still staying in Midian with Jethro. So the travel, right, is not that far actually. It's not like super crazy far from where he used to stay with Jethro. So it says here, and her two sons, of which the name of the one was Gershom, for he said, I have been an alien in a strange land. And you'll see this, right? This was a custom where nomen omen, right? You would name your offspring after circumstance. Hence, when you even look at the 12 patriarchs, their names were based on their circumstance, right? The circumstance of which they were born. Even with Ephraim and Manasseh, as Joseph said, he is called Manasseh, for the Lord has made me forget the toils of my household or of my house. And Ephraim, because the Lord has made him fruitful. So likewise, Moses called his son Gershom, which means foreigner or stranger, because he had been an alien in a strange land. And the name of the other was Eliezer, or Eliezer, for the Lord Yahweh is, for the God of my father said he, so this is what Moses said, was mine help. So the Most High was his help. And that's why he called his son Eleazar, which will go into that Hebrew, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And now when you go into that name, right, you have here Alayah, Izar, okay, which Izar means help. And then you have Allah, which is God, Yah, my God. All right, so God is help. My God is help. God is my help, And there you have the names of Moses' sons. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife unto Moses in the wilderness, where he encamped at the mount of God. See, so basically they made that trip and they came and met Moses over here. Remember, word travels, right? So, how did Jethro hear about the things that the Lord had done? Word was traveling. That's why the Lord said he would get him honor upon Pharaoh, because they would know when something happens in the world today, like today, right? Today is December 14th. There's this news that's been going on about a was it a shooting at a 49ers celebration in Sydney's Bondi Beach. Now we're not there, but we've heard about it. Now it's through a modern means of information traveling, right? But we've heard about it. So back then they had the equivalent system of news being spread. So verse 6, and he said unto Moses, I thy father-in-law Jethro am come unto thee, and thy wife, and her two sons with her. So I brought your family too. And Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, and did obeisance. So he bowed to him and kissed him, which is a custom, right? Likely on the cheek, to like a greeting. And they asked each other of their welfare, and they came into the tent, which would be likely where his tent, where he would dwell. And Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord Yahweh had done unto Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and all the travail that had come upon them by the way, and how the Lord delivered them. So how the plagues the Lord brought, how they escaped, how they had the Lord parted the Red Sea, and they walked on dry land. He had the chariot discomfit the Egyptians. The water closed on them. He rained down manna to feed them. All of these things. And Jethro rejoiced for all the goodness which the Lord Yahweh had done to Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians. Now, we're about to witness something here, right, as we read in Exodus, the 18th chapter, which is that Jethro was not an Israelite. Okay, Jethro was of another nation. However, just because you're of another nation doesn't mean that you're incompetent. Okay, and Jethro indeed was a priest in Midian, but he was able to acknowledge, right, that the God of Moses was the true God above all other gods. It doesn't mean that Jethro would convert to become an Israelite, and it doesn't mean that Jethro would abandon his gods or his practices, and it doesn't mean that Jethro would be saved. Okay? So this is verse 10. And Jethro said, Blessed be the Lord Yahweh, who hath delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of Pharaoh, who hath delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord Yahweh is greater than all gods, for in the thing wherein they dealt proudly, he was above them. Now, even, and going back to the scenarios I gave, even if you did have a heathen that said, hey, I believe that the God you serve is the one true God, so I want to live like you and serve him too. Yeah, they can serve, right? They can reverence the Lord. They can follow his laws, statutes, and commandments, but it doesn't change. And I'm mentioning this because, you have a lot of, you have bugged out Israelites now that are trying to push that. And they'll look for these little examples here and there and try to use it to further a point that really doesn't exist. But yeah, a heathen might do that, but it doesn't, from the perspective of how the Lord deals, it's not going to do anything different, right? The Lord is not going to say, well, because you are a non-Israelite and you're doing the things that an Israelite does, I'm now all of a sudden going to give you the same blessing or the same reward as my elect or as an Israelite. No, it doesn't work that way. So anyway, here what Jethro is saying that, oh, I acknowledge that your God, Yahweh, is greater than all other gods. Okay. For the thing wherein they dealt proudly, which is the Egyptians dealing proudly and oppressing Israel, he was above them, meaning the most the Most High had the upper hand on them and conquered them and destroyed them in that very thing, which was their oppression of his people. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took a burnt offering and sacrifices for God. So he basically brought an offering and a sacrifice for the Most High. Did that make him an Israelite? No. Was he the first, the only heathen to ever do that? No. And Aaron came, and all the elders of Israel, and ate bread with Moses' father-in-law before God. And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood by Moses from the morning unto the evening. So you can imagine a super long line where Moses is sitting there and they're coming up to him and they're telling him their case. They're inquiring of the Most High. Everybody has a different case. And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people, he said, What is this thing that thou doest to the people? Why sittest thou thyself alone, and all the people stand by thee from the morning unto the evening? So what's going on? Why? Because remember, Jethro had experience. Okay. So he's looking at being, the priest and whatnot. So he's looking at Moses like, what are you doing? What's going on here? And Moses said unto his father-in-law, Because the people come unto me to inquire of God. When they have a matter, they come unto me, and I judge between one and another. And I do make them know the statutes of God and his laws. Now, mind you, this is before the Lord had it codified. So how did Moses know it? And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, The thing that thou doest is not good. So no, it's not a good idea. It's not efficient. Thou wilt surely wear away both thou and this people that is with thee. So you're going to wear yourself out and you're going to wear them out. If they got to constantly come and stand in this long line just to wait, God knows how long to come and get their matter judged, eventually you're going to get too tired. They're going to get too tired. It's not going to work out. For this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. Hearken now unto my voice, and I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. Be thou for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring the causes unto God. So basically, Jethro says, all right, why don't you take my advice, right? Continue to still be their mediator, right? So you speak on behalf of the people to the Most High. That's what it means by for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring their causes unto God. So you bring their matters and to the Lord, and thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws. So continue to do that, and shew them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, but in addition, thou shalt appoint or provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness. So select special men worthy for this role that hate covetousness, because that way they won't get bribed. And place such over them to be rulers of thousands, and rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. Okay, and these would be different roles that they would be in. And what this does is it splits that work for you. And let them judge the people at all seasons. And this was like a ranking order, right? You have rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, rulers of tens. Okay, and then it would go up and up and up and up and up. And let them judge the people at all seasons. So you notice when you deal, like, even if you watch like shows and whatnot that have this sort of ranking system, the higher you go, the fewer there are. The higher ups, there are fewer and fewer of them, the higher you go. So you may have I don't know, you may have like five uh five store managers that report to a district manager, right? And then you may have three district managers that report to a regional manager, right? And then you may have that one regional manager report to the CEO or something like that. So it's fewer as you go up the ladder, because the store managers handle things in the store, but if something escalates, they got to take it up to their regional manager, and there's fewer regions than there are employees in the store. So it sort of diminishes as you go up and up and up like that. Anyway, verse 22, and let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee. So if it's something that they can't handle or judge, then they can bring it to you. But every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. So that way, the people are not being worn out, and neither are you. It's easier that way. As opposed to having one store, okay, one single store where everybody in the city comes to. Why don't you have 5 stores, and then more on there. So like you can go to the store that's in your neighborhood versus having to go to this one DMV, for example, where everybody got to go to. If there was just one DMV in the whole United States, all hell will break loose. If thou shalt do this thing, and God command thee so. So if you hearken unto me, and the Most High is basically in line with it, he's okay with it. So then thou shalt be able to endure. You'll be able to sustain and continue in this method, because it's more efficient and it's easier on you and the people. And all this people also shall go to their place in peace, so they can have their matters heard and judged, and they can go back home or back to their tents in peace. So Moses hearkened to the voice of his father-in-law, and did all that he said, or all that he had said. And Moses chose able men out of all Israel, and made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And they judged the people at all seasons. The hard causes they brought unto Moses, but every small matter they judged themselves. And all seasons meaning at basically any time, right? Anytime there was a case, they would bring it to them and they would judge it. And Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way into his own land. And that brings us to the end of the book of Exodus, the 18th chapter. So you can see here that it's spiritual, that the Lord sent Jethro over there, right? Yeah, it was like a reunion. He brought Moses' family. But if you look at what was the main takeaway of Jethro's visit, it was to provide an efficient way for Moses to be able to judge the people. And so once again, right, that's the end of Exodus 18. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rachak Wadash. Until next time, Shalom.